All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Now, we're a little bit less than 3 years removed from the 2021 NFL draft, and that draft year is making the case for producing the worst crop of quarterbacks in NFL history. I say this because five quarterbacks were taken in the first round of that draft, and only two, Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson, are still with the teams that drafted them. Uh, Last month, we saw Mac Jones get traded by the New England Patriots to the Jacksonville Jaguars for a six-round pick. Trey Lance was traded by the San Francisco 49ers to the Dallas Cowboys last year following the emergence of Brock Purdy. Justin Fields was sent to the Pittsburgh Steelers early or last month rather for a fifth round pick. And in the case of Zach Wilson, he is on shaky ground right now with the New York Jets as he appears to be the quarterback that nobody wants. So you look at it like this. Trevor Lawrence is the only quarterback from this group that has won a playoff game. Now, Mac Jones, to his credit, did get there as a starting quarterback for the New England Patriots in his rookie year, but of course, it was a downward spiral in New England after that. I'm going to touch on that tonight before I bid farewell. But speaking of Mac Jones, the question is going to be why has it not worked out uh, for these quarterbacks? And one thing that I definitely will say aside from Trevor Lawrence, there was plenty of reaching in that draft. I think everybody knew going in that Trevor Lawrence was going to be the undisputed first overall pick in that draft. Basically, Trevor Lawrence could have left school after his freshman year at Clemson and been the first overall pick, but he, had to wait until 2021 to come out. And of course, he was the real deal. Everybody else was a question mark. Everybody else was a project. And I think what we saw from this 2021 class and what we're seeing from this 2021 class is what happens, number one, when organizations reach to take certain players. Remember, the 49ers traded up to go out there and take Trey Lance. Remember, the Chicago Bears traded up to take Justin Fields as well. If you're going to trade up to draft a quarterback, you clearly want to make sure that he's your guy. But, for a lot of reasons, it didn't work out for these guys. One thing that I will say is this: I think it comes down to the people that you put around a quarterback. And then on top of that, every quarterback is not meant to start in the National Football League right away. We've talked about this with Zach Wilson with the Jets. The Jets, in my opinion, did not do their due diligence. And then they turned around and made this kid the starter basically from day one. Zach Wilson was not ready. And then on top of that, the Jets didn't put the right coaches or personnel around him either. And I think even with that, I still think it was a reach for the Jets to take him that high. And I think we're seeing the fruits of that right now, if you will. With Trey Lance, there were a lot of questions about him coming out of D2 North Dakota State. And it became apparent early on with the 49ers that he simply could not play. And now he's a backup quarterback with the Dallas Cowboys. There were questions about Justin Fields coming out as well. And it's one of those where I don't think the Bears did him any favors. It was a huge incomplete for Justin Fields with the with the Chicago Bears, and now it's going to be interesting to see if he's going to be able to right those wrongs with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And you just look at it, and then of course Mac Jones, you know I think it was the best situation for him his rookie year with the Patriots. He worked with Josh McDaniels as his offensive coordinator. Basically they were running the same system that Mac Jones was running at the University of Alabama, but then of course after that, Josh McDaniels left the Patriots, got the head coaching job with the Raiders. And then Bill Belichick, the former Patriots head coach, now I've talked about this in the past, really didn't do Mac Jones any favors as well. And now Mac Jones is going to be backing up Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville. So you look at it like this. again, this is a prime example of what happens when organizations reach. And you think about it, when teams are taking quarterbacks that high, usually they're bad organizations and the talent and the personnel isn't there. I am a strong proponent in saying that, you know what, sure, it's okay to draft these kids early. But I think a lot of these teams would do themselves a favor if they brought in a veteran quarterback to kind of take these youngsters under the ropes. And when I say a veteran quarterback, don't bring in a guy that's been there in the NFL for a year or two. You need to go out there and get a seasoned vet, somebody who might be willing to keep that seat warm for at least half a season while that young man, gets his bearings under him, if you will. But I think with the rookie contract and the lack of job security that some of these head coaches have, they take these kids high, and then on top of that, they want to turn them to the wolves right away because they want to see what they have, and then in some cases, they do ruin these kids. So at the end of the day, you ask yourself, where does this class rank of quarterbacks? And it ain't good when we're talking about within 5 years that three of these guys are already on their second team. You think about some of the worst quarterback classes out there. 2010, we saw Tim Tebow and Sam Bradford get taken in the first round. Wasn't good right there. 2015, we saw Jameis Winston and Marcus Mariota get taken in the first round. And of course, it has not worked out for either one of them. 2002, we saw David Carr, Joey Harrington, and Patrick Ramsey get taken in the first round. And clearly, that was a reach for the most part right there. Joey Harrington, it never he flamed out on a bad Detroit Lions team. David Carr, I blame the Houston Texans for that, and a lot of other people do as well for starting a rookie quarterback on an expansion team. That was just a recipe for disaster. 2013, EJ Manuel was the only quarterback taken in round number one that year, and of course, it became apparent very early on that EJ Manuel was not going to be the guy for the Buffalo Bills. You think about 2007 with Jamarcus Russell and Brady Quinn. Um, it never worked out for Brady Quinn in Cleveland, and of course, Jamarcus Russell could possibly go down as the worst first round pick on a quarterback in NFL history. I also think about the 1999 NFL draft. Why? Because we saw five quarterbacks taken in round one that year. Tim Couch going to the expansion Cleveland Browns that year didn't work out. And then, of course, once he got injured, that was the end of it. We did see Donovan McNabb go second overall to the Philadelphia Eagles. And Donovan McNabb kind of propped up this quarterback class with his play and his longevity in Philadelphia. Achilles Smith to the Cincinnati Bengals, third overall that year. And again, it was very apparent very quickly that Achilles Smith was not going to be the guy in Cincinnati. And it wasn't that long before he was out of the NFL altogether. We saw Dante Culpepper go 11th that year to the Minnesota Vikings. And Culpepper did have some quality seasons with the Vikings, throwing to the likes of Chris Carter and Randy Moss. And then right behind him at number 12, the Chicago Bears took Cade McNown. And it wasn't that long before that left handed quarterback was out of the league. I compare the 2021 class to the 1999 class. And the reason was due to the amount of quarterbacks taken in round number one that year. There have been some bad quarterback classes and there have been some reaches, but I think 2021 is right in that mix. Now, it's going to be interesting to see how things work out for the 2024 crop of quarterbacks. And the reason why, there's a possibility, a very strong possibility, that we could see six quarterbacks taken in round number one in a couple of weeks. You think about it, the first three picks are definitely going to be on quarterbacks, more than likely Caleb Williams, Drake May, and Jaden Daniels. And with that said, if you're going to have so many quarterbacks taken early, it doesn't take that much for one team to get desperate, one team to take a reach, move up in the draft, take a quarterback in the top 10, and other teams are going to panic. So this is why it would not surprise me, aside from Drake May, aside from Caleb Williams, aside from Jaden Daniels, to see JJ McCarthy, Bo Nix, and Michael Penix Jr. all possibly go in round one in this year's NFL draft. The bottom line is this: in this current National Football League, you need that quarterback in order to win. But organizations have to put the right pieces and the right people around said quarterbacks. You got to give him the coaches that are going to help to develop his game. You have to put the talent and the personnel around him as well. And if you're not going to do that, okay, and if you do take reaches on quarterbacks, and if you don't go out there and do your homework and do your due diligence on guys, they are going to flame out. And if you use a top 10 pick, regardless of the position, okay, if you use a top 10 pick on a guy and he turns out not to be the guy, and you got to start over at that position a couple of years down the road, guess what? You have really hamstrung the team that you're with. And then on top of that, more than likely, you're going to add to the losing. This is why the draft is so important. This is why it's so important to do your homework. This is why it's also important for teams not to take reaches on guys. 2021 was full of reaches, and we're seeing so many teams still suffering the consequences for said reaches. At the end of the day, the way that it's looking right now, 2021, as far as the quarterbacks taken that year, might be one of the worst of all time. So, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank all of you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it will be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. Now you can check it out, drop a line, and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I am signing off. And I'm saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.